Hi, and welcome back to Movie Talk with Carter and Ewan. I am Carter.
And I'm Ewan.
If this is your first time listening, get ready for lots of fun. And if this is your second time listening, because this is our second video, you really need to get a life or you're really bored. Anyways, what we're going to be doing today is going through our top five um, kind of lead male performances of the decade. And we're just going to be doing some honorable mentions and comparing our top five, going five through one.
Yep. So, do you want to start for honorable mentions or do you want me to start?
You can start with honorable mention.
All right. For my honorable mentions, in no particular order, I have Michael Keaton for Birdman, James McAvoy for Split, Bradley Cooper for A Star Is Born, Ryan Gosling for La La Land, even though he really could have got for any of these movies, Blade Runner 2049, Drive, The Big Short, or The Nice Guys. And finally, Hugh Jackman for Logan. And I just want to say something quickly. There would be two performances in the movie Prisoners from 2013 that would make my list. I just don't know if Hugh Jackman or Jake Gyllenhaal would be best, like leading or supporting, so I didn't put them on this. But just so you know.
Yeah, I shared Michael Keaton and Ryan Gosling too. Other performances that I have that I didn't quite make my list were Jamie Foxx in Django Unchained, Miles Teller, Whiplash, Brad Pitt, Moneyball, Matt Damon, The Martian, Michael Fassbender, Steve Jobs, Timothy Chalamet, Call Me by Your Name, and this was so close to my number fifth pick, but Eddie Redmayne, Theory of Everything.
Number fifth.
Yeah.
I almost put on Timothy.
Number fifth, yeah. Yeah, I almost put him on there too, but it was like,
all those were great from what I've seen. And yeah, like Miles Teller, Whiplash was my favorite film of the 2010s. He just barely missed it, but check out when we do our supporting actor, there will be an actor in that film that will reach that list.
Yeah, same here.
All right, you can go first for your number five.
You want me to start? Okay.
Yeah.
So my number five is Benedict Cumberbatch in The Imitation Game. The Imitation Game is kind of a slept-on period piece political thriller from 2014, starring Benedict Cumberbatch, Keira Knightley, and even though this movie didn't reach quite the hype, like it doesn't have a legacy now, I thought Benedict Cumberbatch was absolutely fantastic in his film. He one of his best performances to date, if not his best. He totally carries this film, and it's a really interesting character study as well.
Yeah, so I haven't seen The Imitation Game, but I've heard about it a lot and heard a lot of praise for Benedict Cumberbatch.
Yeah, he's really good in this, and the film itself won Best Adapted Screenplay at the Oscars too, and I believe Benedict got an Oscar nomination for it as well. So yeah, that's really exciting.
Not sure, but I would say 2014 might be the best year for film of the past decade, or at least in my opinion, it's definitely one of them. So the fact that it won Best Adapted Screenplay is quite impressive.
Yeah, I'd say 2017 is the best film or best year for film,
Yeah,
but 2014 was, I mean, spectacular.
yeah. Well, I mean, there were a few years like 2018, which was like iffy, but then there were some
Yeah.
2014, 17, or 19 that were great. My number five is Oscar Isaac and Inside Llewyn Davis. Inside Llewyn Davis is one of the most underrated films I've ever seen. It comes from the Coen brothers, and Oscar Isaac is just perfect in this film. I saw this after I'd seen him as Poe Dameron in the Star Wars
Yeah.
trilogy, but he is so good in this movie. He's just so drowsy. I think that's a great word kind of to describe it. And he just has to do so much in this film, but so subtly. I think that's how I would say it. And even like
Yeah.
when he has to sing, it's actually really good too. But I love this film, and his performance is incredible.
See, I've never seen this movie, but I don't know. From what I've read up on about it, it seems like right up my alley. There's
Yeah,
music, Oscar Isaac, of course, Coen Brothers, Roger Deakins did the cinematography, if I'm correct, and
I
yeah,
might
it
say
seems
that.
totally up my alley.
I don't think he did, but I will.
Oh no? Oh, okay, never mind. But still,
Here, wait.
regardless.
I love this film like so much. It is so well done, and it is really underrated. No, the
Yeah,
director
it's
of photography was Bruno Del Bol.
oh yeah, from he did Half Blood Prince.
Oh, really?
Anyways,
Yeah.
yeah, he is
No.
from.
Kind of looks a
Yeah,
lot like Half-Blood Prince, actually, now that I think about that.
they have both very melancholy color palettes. So my number four is kind of an off pick. It's didn't get any Golden Globe hype, any Oscar hype, and this is Nick Robinson in Love, Simon.
Nice.
So as I've mentioned before, Love, Simon is in my top five, probably of the decade, top five coming of age films, and Nick Robinson carries this movie. Nick Robinson, he's been in a couple of other minor films. He was in Jurassic World,
Yeah.
and he's such a subtle performance because, especially with all the movements going on, it's really hard to have a film that has like a gay protagonist, but isn't like just kind of out there gay, who's just kind of
I know.
dealing with himself and yeah, exactly, just kind of going through this internal process and just trying to be um, just to show everyone he's a regular and still the same person. And I think Nick Robinson's performance is so underrated. It conveys so much emotion. It's such a humane role too, and he has a lot of dramatic moments and a lot of comedic moments because this is a comedy. And yeah, it's just a brilliant performance, which I think is really underrated.
Yeah, I would totally agree on that. If you watched or listened to our last episode, because this is now also on Apple Podcasts, also Spotify and my YouTube channel, we talked about Love,
Sick.
Simon, and I totally agree. His performance is so good in the film. The film was one of my top, I think, 15 of 2018. And I know I kind of trashed on 2018 there for a bit, but this film really was great. And Nick Robinson, as I agree that he definitely carried this film, and he had so many just great scenes that I couldn't picture any other actor in his role and just doing the work that he did.
Yeah, he totally made it his own and totally elevated, I think, what would have been maybe a mediocre screenplay. And
Yeah.
he totally brought life into it.
My number four, it came out last year. It was my favorite performance, and that is Adam Driver in Marriage Story. I think the two lead performances in Marriage Story from Adam Driver and Scarlett Johansson are just straight up two of the best acting performances I've ever seen. They are so good in this film, especially Adam Driver, just as this list. But the argument scene was my favorite scene of last year, and he just has so many
Same.
scenes where he conveys so much emotion that you wouldn't really expect. Just say there are some scenes that really just come out of nowhere, like as I said, the argument scene where he starts, screaming at her, yelling that she got hit by a truck, I think, something like that, and then
Yeah.
punches the wall. But then there's other scenes where you see him working, and you see, wow, just Adam Driver is one of the most underrated people working today. I think he's been in some great
Oh,
stuff.
for sure.
This, I think, probably is his best work. Well, it is definitely his best work, probably his best film.
So Adam Driver in Marriage Story was my number two. And I'll talk, there's something about how natural and real he plays his character, even though he's so tight knit to the actual screenplay, which thanks in part to Noah Baumbach's screenplay and direction. But every word he articulates and says, it just feels so real and so deep. And what he says isn't what he means, and we see what he means, and his character progression, and it's just absolutely beautiful. And I totally agree that Adam Driver is one of the most underrated actors working, and I can totally see a 20 in the 2020 decade where he wins an Oscar for sure.
Oh yeah, definitely. Like I love Joaquin Phoenix's performance in Joker. It was fantastic, but I like this one a little
Hmm.
bit more. But even though Joaquin won, I was very happy there. But yes,
Hmm.
this film too.
Yeah, I do agree. Adam totally should have won, in my opinion. My number three is Chiwetel Ejiofor in 12 Years a Slave. I haven't seen this movie in a couple of years, but 12 Years a Slave is probably the closest the 2010s decade has gotten to a modern masterpiece, in my opinion. And it's just an absolutely beautiful historical film with such a broad cast and amazing performances, all led by Chiwetel Ejiofor, who is just so personal and amazing, and he has so much emotion, and he's so strong and confident yet depressed, and it's a beautiful film, and that's a beautiful, beautiful performance that actually got Oscar recognition too, with like for a nomination.
Yeah, so again, I have not somehow seen 12 Years a Slave, but when I was making my list, every single list I checked had him and Lupita Nyong'o. Is that how you say her last name?
Yeah,
Okay, good. For 12 Years a Slave, and I've just heard it being praised like crazy, as even as you said there, a modern, basically a modern masterpiece. But I've heard just great things about it.
yeah, it's definitely just just a brilliant film, brilliantly directed, and I mean Chiwetel Ejiofor, he isn't really a household name, but he totally stands his own against like Brad Pitt, Sarah Paulson, Benedict Cumberbatch, Michael Fassbender, these big name stars, and he's just a complete tour de force powerhouse.
All right, my number three is Joaquin Phoenix for The Master. So I, of course, love Joaquin Phoenix's work. He's one of the best actors working today. He was fantastic in Joker, in Her, even like early in the 2000s if you're looking at Gladiator or Signs. But The Master, I feel like, is his best performance. He is crazy in this film. There's one scene, yeah, I won't spoil it, but there's a scene that takes place in a prison, and I think he's in like a straitjacket or something, and he's swinging around and he's like hitting his head off like a bed, and then he ends up breaking a toilet, and he wasn't supposed to do that. But there were just so many brilliant scenes, and this is Paul Thomas Anderson, just one of the best directors working today. And this is my second favorite film that I've seen from him. And both Joaquin Phoenix and Philip Seymour Hoffman are perfect in this, and I actually like Joaquin's performance more. But there are so many great scenes. Like there's this a questioning scene, I'll say, between Joaquin and Philip Seymour Hoffman, and it's so intense. And there's also a scene with Amy Adams in this where her eyes are like changing color just because he's imagining it. And just throughout the film, this character is crazy. Freddie Quell, I think is his name. He's one of my favorite characters of this decade as well.
Yeah, see, I've never seen The Master. I've never even seen a Paul Thomas Anderson film, which
Really?
I definitely need to watch over this quarantine,
Yeah.
at least one of them. But I've heard like on every single list I've seen, even on Twitter and stuff, like I've heard Joaquin Phoenix is absolutely like a powerhouse in The Master. So I'm really excited to see that if I eventually do.
Yeah, it's on Prime Video, I think. I've seen three of Paul Thomas Anderson's films. I've seen obviously There Will Be Blood, which I think is even better, and Phantom Thread, and then this. But if you're gonna start off with a Paul Thomas Anderson film, definitely check out There Will Be Blood.
Oh, yeah, I've seen like the first half and then I fell asleep because it's at like 2 a.m. But I am, yeah, so not ideal circumstances, but I am really excited to try out one of his films.
Yeah, it was really funny. The first time I watched, this is a little side story. The first time I watched There Will Be Blood, I don't normally do this with movies, but again, it was like that situation. I watched, I think, the first half, and then I paused it, and I went to bed. And then the next day in school, we started watching The Last of the Mohicans, which also stars Daniel Day-Lewis. And I was just
Oh
like,
yeah,
it's so weird that I'm watching two of his films, and I don't think I'd ever seen a Daniel Day-Lewis film before that.
yeah, I might not have ever seen a Daniel Day-Lewis film either. Right now, trying to
He is
think. Uh,
incredible.
oh, I've seen Gangs of New York actually,
Oh yeah,
but
yeah. I also watched that after though.
I've already done my number two. So do you just want to go into your number two?
So just to make it clear, your number two was
Adam Driver, Marriage Story.
yeah. So my number two is Jake Gyllenhaal in Nightcrawler. This is Jake Gyllenhaal is one of my favorite actors of all time. He's definitely in my top 10, maybe even my top five. He's one of the most talented people working today. I talked about his performance in Prisoners, but really,
Mhm.
he has some of the best performances ever. But his best is in Nightcrawler. He plays Lewis Bloom, and he just talks so fast in the film. And he actually memorized the entire script like you do for theater. And he's been in musical theater, Sunday in the Park with George. He's doing that this year too, and he is just mind blowing. And I don't think he got an Oscar nomination, even though this is the best performance of 2014, I think. And honestly, this is my favorites list, but I believe that this is one of the best performances I've ever seen. He is insane. Like this film, the measures that this character goes to and the way that Jake Gyllenhaal presents it is crazy. Something that happens to someone who's working with him in the third act, and then you just see the insanity of this character not do what most people would do, and the way that Jake Gyllenhaal portrays this is perfect.
Yeah, see, Jake Gyllenhaal, he's such a versatile actor. I mean, he can play so many different characters. It's very similar to Gary Oldman, but I have never seen Nightcrawler, so I'm actually really excited to, if I do end up watching it, you definitely praise the hell out of it, so I'm excited.
Yeah, Nightcrawler I've seen twice, and it just gets better the second time because you catch on to more things that he does. Like there's a scene where he breaks a mirror and then he like slams it and it apparently cut his hand open. And the thing is that I think they shot this film, I'm pretty sure, in like 19 days. So like there's a scene where he's giving off a bunch of information and his hand's just behind his back because he's such a good actor. He just powered through the fact that his hand just got sliced open.
Yeah, he's an amazing actor. I mean, Brokeback Mountain is
Yeah,
terrific, and um, yeah, he's incredible.
yeah, definitely one of my favorites. All right, so you're number one.
My number one, it's kind of basic, not gonna lie, and it's not as emotional as my some of my other picks on my list. But my number one is Jesse Eisenberg in The Social Network. The Social Network is just a brilliant film, definitely a masterpiece. It has such a legacy. It's held up so well, and Jesse Eisenberg is a perfect example, a paint by numbers of a fantastic carrying performance. He totally breathes life into Mark Zuckerberg. He's quick, he's witty. He says his dialogue as if it's not dialogue, as it's the closest thing to not acting, where it doesn't seem like he's acting, where it just seems like he's portraying this character. And I think it's an absolute like should be illegal that he did not win an Oscar for this because he is just fantastic.
Yeah, so another funny thing, I haven't seen this film, and I think it's on Netflix. It's on some watch list, and it's been
Yeah,
on
it is on Netflix.
for so long. And as I was looking through this list, the same thing with Joaquin Phoenix. Every single list that I went to had him in as either number one or like number three. It was either Joaquin Phoenix in The Master or Jesse Eisenberg in The Social Network.
Hmm.
So
Yeah, you have to see The Social Network. Like it's an amazing film. David Fincher directed it too, and yeah, Jesse Eisenberg just totally nails it out of the park. He is terrific in this movie.
yeah, David Fincher did my second favorite film of all time, Fight Club, and I also love
Uh,
Seven, of course, because David Fincher is like it's just I don't understand how he just creates these insane stories that work so well, and The Social Network feels like a more, or at least looks like a more realistic because it's based on, of course, a true story, and
mhm.
I'm of course really excited to see it when I finally do.
Well, it's so weird because The Social Network, like, of course, it's David Fincher, but it isn't exactly a thriller because it's a biopic, but it's like it's a thrilling and exhilarating movie too, which is so weird because it's just kind of like a tech film, but it's so much more than that. And yeah, you gotta see
Yes, I've heard that about it.
it.
All right, my number one is another one that tops on almost all the lists. I truly believe this is the best performance I've seen in the 2010s, definitely, and the best performance from this actor, and he's one of the best actors of all time, and that is Leonardo DiCaprio in The Wolf of Wall
I
Street.
knew it. I knew that was gonna be your number one.
I thought so. So, Leonardo DiCaprio is like one of my top three or five favorite actors of all time, and he's done some amazing work. Even when you look at his early work, What's Eating Gilbert Grape, where he played
Oh, love
a
that
disabled
movie.
person, it is oh my god, that movie is so good. It's one of my favorites, so underrated. where he's brilliant in that film, and he's just so good in every single film, and he's even really good in The Revenant. He won for that, but I don't know how he did not win for this. This is just an insanely good performance from him. He goes through so much in this film. Literally, the scene where I won't say exactly. There's a scene involving stairs and getting into a car, and
Yeah.
in the film you definitely know what I'm talking about. And oh my god, he's so good in this, and the way that he plays Jordan Belfort, and I've actually read the book too, and I actually like the movie more, which isn't normally the case. Just the way it's told by Scorsese, one of my favorite directors.
Yeah.
Um, the way he kind of acts inside of his job, like when he's selling the one thing to one of the people early on, and you see
Okay.
everyone kind of look over to him, and you're just like, wow. It's just I was blown away over the first time I saw it, and even when I rewatched it with my parents, that was bad. Um, he was just as good the second time, and I truly believe this is one of the best performances of all time, like top 10.
I've seen The Wolf of Wall Street. I thought Leonardo DiCaprio was absolutely amazing and captivating in this role, but it just like for some reason maybe I wasn't in the right mood. It wasn't my kind of niche, I guess, a movie, which is weird because I love comedies. I love breaking the fourth wall. I love Margot Robbie, Jonah Hill, DiCaprio. DiCaprio is my favorite actor, and I love Scorsese, but I don't know, something about Wolf of Wall Street just didn't do it for me. But I do have to agree, DiCaprio was terrific in this movie and totally deserved an Oscar. And I've seen, I think it was Matthew McConaughey, which beat him out that year. And I've seen Dallas Buyers Club, and it's
I have,
no match to DiCaprio.
yeah, it's funny, like you mentioned Matthew McConaughey, and I just think of how good the cast is. Of course, that scene. mm,
Oh yeah, McConaughey's in Wolf of Wall Street too. I didn't even
he's
think
also
about that.
he's really good, but the cast, as you mentioned, is amazing. Margot Robbie, my favorite actress. Jonah Hill giving the best performance I've seen from him. Even Rob Reiner as Jordan's dad, the director who made Misery, The Princess Bride, Stand By Me, like films like that. He's in John Favreau. Like this film is so good, but Leonardo DiCaprio, just he's fantastic here.
Yeah, DiCaprio, he's like one of my favorite actors, and I think his 2000s were a bit better than his 2010s, but I mean, still, he's any movie, any project he's attached to, I will see opening day.
Oh yeah, I totally agree. I don't, and again, I don't know about the 2000 compared to 2010 because The Departed, I think, is probably my favorite film from him, which came out in the 2000s. So
Yeah,
it's like, and
The
but then,
Departed is
yeah, it's like
fantastic.
one of my favorite films. But then, like, you look at his work in the 2010s, and you're like, oh, but what about Inception? Like another great film, and it's just like it's hard to say what your favorite film of his is, but I think that The Departed is, but this one is definitely one of them. I think it might be number two because I actually do like this a bit more than Inception. So yeah,
Have you seen Revolutionary Road?
I have not yet, but I want
That's
to be
like, sorry for interrupting you. Go ahead.
very Canadian of both of us.
Yeah, Revolutionary Road. It's I think it was 2008, and it's
Yeah,
like the marriage story of the 2000s with
yeah,
Kate Winslet, Michael Shannon, David Harbour, Leonardo DiCaprio. It's fantastic. Like it's an absolutely beautiful, humane character study, marriage study, and I think it's both peak Kate Winslet and peak Leonardo DiCaprio.
yeah. Which is like I'm just like Leonardo DiCaprio and Kate Winslet in another film because I like you look
Yeah,
at the work in Titanic, which I actually think is fantastic. I realize over the years people kind of don't like Titanic as much, but I feel like it's also a great film. But I also recently rewatched Eternal Sunshine of the Spotless Mind, which has always been one of my top 20 films, and Kate Winslet
yeah, same
is
here.
one of the best performances I've ever seen from an actress, and I think easily it's her best work, but I have not seen this film yet, so maybe this one could be.
Yeah, Kate Winslet's fantastic. I mean, Steve Jobs, she was amazing in. The Reader, of course, Titanic, and Spotless Mind. She's really one of the best actresses, I think, ever, and I'm really excited for her in the French Dispatch.
Yeah, of course, as we kind of got into a side conversation there, this is just like the work that Leonardo DiCaprio does is fantastic, along with all these actors that I mentioned: Leonardo DiCaprio, Jake Gyllenhaal, Joaquin Phoenix, Adam
Hmm.
Driver, Oscar Isaac. All of these people, even people on my honorable mentions, your list, they all do some fantastic work. But these are just our lists, so yeah.
Yeah. If I can ask you a question here, who do you think, like, which specific actor had the best 2010s?
I actually believe I was thinking about this. I think it's Ryan Gosling. As I listen
So
to one
do
of
I.
the films,
So do I.
it's funny. So we have first off, I'm just gonna go in order. I think Drive. Have you seen Drive?
Yeah, I have seen Drive. He's
Drive is a very
fantastic in
artsy
that.
film, but I think his performance is great. And then, of course, The Big Short is a film that I really like, but he
I love
has
The Big Short.
standout moments in this. Like it was a bit too, I don't know, like what's the word, like businessy, like a bit too complicated. And they try to dumb it down a bit, but it doesn't always work. But him and a lot of the other actors, like Christian Bale, my favorite actor, are so good in this film. And then, of course, La La Land. I'll let you talk about this for a bit.
Oh, La La Land's my favorite film. I mean, you can see my icon up there if you're watching the YouTube version.
I'll put it back.
I uh, I love La La Land, and Ryan Gosling. He is on my honorable mentions. I think he's a bit outshined by Emma Stone, but Ryan Gosling is freaking fantastic and loves jazz.
Yeah, yeah, and then Blade Runner 2049 is one of my 5 or 10 favorite films of last decade.
Uh,
I love the original Blade Runner, but I believe that Blade Runner 2049 is actually even better. And then The Nice Guys
uh,
is my favorite film from Ryan Gosling, one of the funniest films ever made, and he is so good in the film, and he likes to scream a lot. Even in Blade Runner 2049, he does it too.
and I mean, just to add on, Ryan Gosling had Crazy Stupid Love and First Man, which he is fantastic in too, really underrated. And
I
I
haven't seen
mean,
it.
I absolutely, I absolutely despise the Blade Runner franchise. Um, like I can't. I've seen both of the movies twice, and like I love how they're crafted and directed, but other than that, there's no entertainment value for me. But
I
that's a
can,
conversation for another day.
yeah, I can totally see that. I've heard so many crazy opinions on Blade Runner. A lot of people not loving the original. Which cut did you watch, if you know?
I think it was just like the original like theater cut.
Okay, because there's the original cut, the director's cut, and the final cut. And if you haven't seen Blade Runner, this is for anyone listening. Check out the final cut. That's the only one I've seen, and it is brilliant. All right.
Alrighty, well, I think that concludes our video
Yeah.
or
So
our little. Go ahead.
so follow us on all our social medias. If you're watching on YouTube, it'll be on the screen, and if not, my stuff is all the same. My Twitter and Instagram is and Letterbox. It's all at you in reviews, and Carter for yours.
Yep. So my Twitter and my Instagram is at Carter Reviews, and I think the reviews has a Z at the end just for some
Yeah,
pizzazz. And my letterbox is Carter Anderson, capital on the first and last name.
cool. Thank you all for listening, and if you have any
Yeah. Thank
suggestions
you.
what you want us to talk about. If you're watching on YouTube, comment down below. You can DM me on Instagram or Carter or basically anywhere. And thank you all for watching, and we will see you guys next week.